Yes, you can do that. With your kitchen, you can do that. Don't worry.
No, that's good. That's Well, I thought she was and then so yeah, well, I was right. Yeah. Yeah. It really is. Right. That's true. But I'll take that. There's something here that I don't yeah. Okay.
Well, one, two of them.
Yes, you may.
Good for you.
Could we have everyone please stand? Thank you.
Sorry. audience may be seated. I'd like to welcome all these wonderful friends and family. It buoys me up to see you all here, and I appreciate your attendance, and I know Alan does too. And I'm going to read through the program here. In loving memory of Alan Royce Pearce, born January 18, 1965, Preston, Idaho, passed away March 2nd, 2025, Nampa, Idaho. Webb Funeral Home, Saturday, March 8, 2025, 1 p.m. Lewis Palmer, cousin conducting, pallbearers, Michael Pearce, David Teuscher, Lewis Palmer, Jim Gass, Rick Humphreys, Cory Castagneto, Kathy Steadman, Curtis Guiles. Honorary pallbearers, Rodney Pearce, Jeff Pearce, Dan Bloom, Randy Meyer, Steve Malan. Service, family prayer, Jim Gass, cousin. Invocation, Jeff Pearce, cousin. Life sketch, Michael Pearce, brother. Violin solo, Emily Pearce, daughter. Love's Sorrow by Fritz Kreisler. Memories, friends and family. Violin solo, Emily Pearce, daughter. You Are My Sunshine. Remarks, Lewis Palmer, cousin. Benediction Staci Palmer, cousin. Dedication of the grave, Rick Humphreys, cousin. Interment, Preston, Idaho Cemetery. Compassionate service, kindly provided by the Franklin 2nd Ward Relief Society. So if we could have Jeff Pearce come and give us the invocation, then Michael will give us the life sketch, and then we'll have the violin solo go to that point.
Our Father in heaven, we thank thee, Father, for this beautiful day and this beautiful service that we're about to have for our son, a brother, cousin, a friend. We thank thee, Father, for all the many blessings that thou hast given us. We thank thee for the gospel of Jesus Christ. We thank you for the atonement of Jesus Christ. And we look forward to the time when we can see Alan again through the resurrection, that Jesus died for us, and he rose on the third day, as we all will someday. We ask that thy Spirit would be here with us this day. And we ask for the comforter to be with those family members, those close family members and relatives. And we say these things, Father, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Before I read Alan's life sketch, I want to thank everybody who came from near and far to be here to help us celebrate Alan's life. And I realized a couple of things. First, if I should have printed this in a bigger font, because through the tears, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read it. So, Sean, here I'm back up. And anyway, so Alan Royce Pearce was born in Preston, Idaho on January the 18th, 1965 to Rod and Nancy Pearce. He continued to live in Preston until he graduated Preston Senior High School in 1983. During his years growing up, he would help his dad on the milk truck, delivering dairy goods to various grocery stores and the schools in the area. Also, while in high school, he would also spend time working on his Uncle Jimmy's mink ranch. While we were in high school, the family moved to a small farm in Whitney, Idaho, And there he helped out on the farm, milking cows, moving irrigation pipe, and hauling hay. He would occasionally, as a youth, he had many hobbies, including stamp collecting and coin collecting and oil painting. Some of his hobbies were short-lived, depending on which merit badge he was working on his way towards earning an Eagle Scout award. He spent time with his family and friends, enjoying outdoor activities such as camping, hunting, fishing, and skiing. He also enjoyed playing the guitar and later the fiddle. A passion for many of these activities would stay with him for the rest of his life. After his graduation from high school, Alan attended Utah State University, graduating with a bachelor's degree in German in 1989. During his time at Utah State University, he took time off to serve the 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He served in the Hamburg, Germany mission. While at Utah State, he had a difficult time deciding on a major. At one point, he decided he wanted to become a nuclear engineer, and that the best way to do this was to join the military. He was eventually accepted by the Marine Corps with plans to become a pilot. He received a medical discharge, though, 3 days later after the Marines discovered that he had a small vertebral spine fracture that hadn't healed quite correctly, and they felt that this would put him at risk for injury as a pilot. He had suffered that injury a few years earlier while skiing at Beaver Mountain in a ski crash, which Alan described as a hard bounce off a mountain. After graduating from Utah State, he attended Creighton University, where he completed his doctorate degree in dentistry in 1993. He went on to continue his education at the University of Texas, Houston. There he completed a combined medical doctorate and oral surgery residency in 1997. During his dental and medical school training, he was nominated to both the National Dental Honor Society, Omicron Kappa Upsilon, and the National Medical Honor Society, Alpha Omega Alpha. Following the completion of his oral surgery residency, he moved to Idaho to begin his oral surgery practice. He continued in an active practice in what Alan would describe as popping whizzies, wisdom teeth, for those of you not in the know, until 2007, when health difficulties developed, which prevented him from continuing in his career. While attending Creighton University, he met Nancy Snell on a blind date. He would let her marry on June 23, 1995 in Logan, Utah. Following their move to Nampa, their family began to grow with the additions of Emily and Alyssa, his 2 beloved daughters. Alan's marriage to Nancy would later end in 2011. In addition to the love of the outdoors and music, he developed a passion for old cars. He could spend hours talking about anything from 32 Ford 3-window coupe to 1940 Willys cars to 1960s Corvettes. And he would buy and sell multiple project cars through the years, with always the grand idea of restoring a dream car someday. He learned, though, that in the auto restoration world, time and money are always against you. He loved trying to keep old cars and trucks running forever. And one of his goals was to keep his 2007 F-150 Ford pickup running for at least 300,000 miles. I can't tell you how many miles it's got now, somewhere around 250. Through his life, Alan spent a lot of time hunting. His travels would take him to various locations in Nebraska, Texas, Nevada, New Mexico, and Idaho. He had no difficulty traveling alone into the remote portions of the Oahe Desert, spending time camping and hunting for a few weeks at a time during the fall. During one of those solo hunting trips, he suffered 2 flat tires. He'd been counseled always to have 2 tires with him, but he'd never gotten flat tires at this time. He only took 1. And he spent a couple of cold nights waiting for help to finally arrive, while the rest of the family worried about his fate. He was eventually found by one of the Oahe County Search and Rescue team. And after all the trouble he got into with his family after that event, he reluctantly agreed to get an emergency satellite phone that he could use to call us if he was ever in trouble again. He always felt that he would have a successful hunt if he used Isabella's credit card to buy his permits. he felt that it was quite lucky. And he always, and also the other thing was he told me about finding a lucky rock while he was out hunting. Was less than ever up at his home, there's lots of rocks all over the house. Alan passed away on March the 2nd, 2025. His last words to his family and friends were, "Love is all that matters. I love you all, now and forever." He is survived by his daughters, Emily of Moscow, Idaho, Alyssa at Fruitland, Idaho, his parents, Rod and Nancy of Preston, Idaho, his brother, Michael, in Linden, Utah, his sister, Leslie, in Preston, Idaho, and he's also survived by his best cousin, Lewis, also here in Preston, Idaho, along with many other cousins, nephews, and nieces. Also want to thank again you for coming, and also to Webb Mortuary, who's helped us through this difficult time.
Okay, Emily, we're ready. Wanted to know before she starts that this is Al's violin.
Yeah, the pleasure. My dad knows that I have some pretty bad stage fright, so you know that he's up here with me playing in spirit. So. sound better.
Emily, you're courageous, you're lovely, and I'm sure Alan is really proud. And when I think about you are my sunshine, you know who comes to mind? And that's Grandma E, and we love her. And grateful for that. Now, we're going to turn some time over for memories, friends and family. Now, we want to probably maybe go 20 minutes or so with that, or so if we could keep the remarks kind of brief, but I'm sure they'll be heartfelt, and anybody who's anyone who wants to is welcome to come up here and take part in that.
So now that we've got the live sketch done, now I can dish all the dirt. So, for those of you who remember Alan as a young kid, you'll remember that he had a little bit of a temper. And it was my pride and joy, being the older brother, to taunt him to the point that that temper would flare. And of course, he was oftentimes the one that got into trouble because, just as anybody who watches sports know, the instigator usually doesn't get caught and get the technical, it's the guy that follows up. And so I did a lot of taunting with Alan. And we had some major battles over the years. We were out working weeding one day, and of course, as the older brother, I always did more work than Alan did. And I was chiding him for not pulling enough weeds, and of course that led into a little skirmish. And pretty soon, Alan backed away, and of course we're weeding the rock garden. And he picks up a rock. I don't remember how big it was. It looked pretty big in his hand as it came hurling towards me. It happened to catch me in the side of the head. It didn't hurt too bad, but enough that I thought, I'm going to scare the dickens out of him. So I collapsed to the ground, totally out of it. And of course, Alan, realizing what he had just done, killing his brother, decided that he would come running up, and it was all sorrowful and mournful. We had another couple of days. We were out shoveling out the stalls, always a favorite thing to do on the farm. And again, he's not pulling his load. And that led to a wonderful battle of pitchforks. Fortunately, neither of us were hurt in that incident. But so some of these seems to be pretty exciting. I mentioned that Alan had a love of cars, and the first car that he bought was a 1952, this green, ugly Plymouth. But he loved it. It was a 3-speed, 3 on the tree, and the only good thing about the car was it ran, but he insisted on driving it to school. And the other bad thing about the car was it was full of rust. So much rust that we didn't have any floor in it. And so you'd be driving up the highway here, going to school in the mornings, and you would put one foot on either side of the hole, and then rocks would get spit up at you, and major other problems with it. But he finally got rid of that, and then he bought a Carmen Ghia. The Carmen Ghia also, the only good thing about it was it ran, but not very well. It did not have a heater in it, and so, Cache Valley gets cold in the wintertime. And so we'd be driving the Carmen Ghia someplace, and he would have a little salt sock, which Dad taught him how to use. The salt sock, for those of you who don't know, was something from the good old days before cars had heaters, and so you'd fill a sock up with rock salt. As it would get wet, you would rub it on the inside of the windshield to help change the dew point just enough that we would drive around with a like this. How we never got killed, I don't know. But I think he sold that Carmen Ghia and then bought a second Carmen Ghia. And that Carmen Ghia, he lamented because when he was in Creighton, I guess he lived on a hill, and somebody had rolled a car down a hill, or not a car, but a tire down the hill had gotten away and put a huge dent in it, and you would have thought that was a huge lament. And so, you know, always into the cars, and if you ever got into a conversation with him on the telephone, it would be like, Sue-Ann, call me, send me a text, do me something that I can break away from this hour-long discussion of the intricacies, of the differences of an LS3 versus an LS2 and everything else. Those are engines, by the way. So I know more about cars than I really ever wanted to know as a consequence of him. And as you looked around, we've got these horns here. Alan was a passionate hunter, and one day he and I were up hunting together for 30 plus years. He and I would get together every fall and go on an elk hunt together. My purpose of going on the elk hunt isn't necessarily to get an elk. It was to spend time with elk. But to be in the hills with him could be trying. Number one, he always wanted to hunt until you couldn't see anything at dusk. I hate coming out in the dark because you trip and you fall and you struggle with things. Even if you've got a good flashlight and a headlamp, there's always some stick that pokes you. But you always had to stay until well after sunset. The second thing was, despite Alan's being in the hills that we grew up in for a long time, he could occasionally get lost. And one time we were up at a place called Squirrel Hollow. It's up the Strawberry Canyon. And the word between us always was that, you know, we could walk through the trees together a few feet apart, not more than a few feet apart, about 20, 30 feet apart, which eventually turned into 50 or 100 yards. But we always knew the destination where we were going to go. And one day we had hiked to the top of Squirrel Hollow, and the idea was, as it gets flat up on top of the ridge, the idea was we would circle around across the dark or the flat part, drop off the ridge, and then circle back to the trail that would take us back down to the truck. Well, anyway, as we're walking across the top, there's been an old pine tree that's fallen down, and it's like a bunch of picket fenced new pines had grown up off of that. And I saw Alan on his side, and I was on my side, but when we came to the end of this, because this thing's, you know, it's pretty long, all of a sudden it's no Alan. So, I don't know, what am I going to do? So I went over and called for him a little bit. I bugled for him a few times, thinking that he would realize that he'd gone off the wrong side of the hill. And then, no luck. So, didn't know what to do after that. So I wandered back around, eventually thought, well, he'll figure out where he's at, because he's been up here a zillion times with us, he'll know where he's at. But Alan's mind kind of got a little funky, and he got, oh, here's a patch of huckleberries. So he sat down and ate huckleberries for a while. And then he got further down, guess what? He found another lucky rock. And then, next thing, now about 3 hours later, he's finally figured out, I should be back at the truck by now. Maybe I don't know quite where I am. Well, long story short, he had walked off into the other drainage off the top of the ridge and was now 5 or 6 miles from where he should have been. And by that time, I'd been back to the truck, waited a couple hours. I walked back up to the top of the hill looking for him. In the meantime, fortunately, found somebody on his side-by-side who was able to tell him, you know, you're in the wrong canyon, buddy, and was able to bring him back. By that time, Dad had also got anxious about us and come looking for us as well. But, you know, despite his prowess in the woods, sometimes his focus on huckleberries got him into trouble. So, great guy. We'll miss him. And, again, thanks all for coming.
Well, this is the first time I've taught public since when I went to church one time. And a nervous breakdown. And also at the Presbyterian Church. We didn't even get our parts right. But anyway, I'm a late bloomer, so Al and I had our family later. My girls are the same ages. My girls and Alyssa and Emily and Andrew were they're the same age. We went up to Redfish a lot. We had great memories. I'm so glad we went. And it was never perfect, but it was fun. So Alan, he just loved to keep his clothes forever, just like Uncle Rodney. I love that. And we were all sitting around the fire, and Alan had this shirt on, and it had like little tiny holes everywhere. I'm like, Les, grab that side. And so we take it, and we just rip that shirt off. And then we put it in the fire. And Alan just...
We were in trouble.
Yeah, we were in trouble, but he let it go because, you know, it was funny. Everybody was there, and we were just, it was funny. And then he loved going on the horseback rides up at Redfish. And the first thing Diana said to me is, oh, Uncle, Cousin Alan, he was the best at taking us on those horseback rides, and we had such good times. And then, I'll be really quick, but one time Alan came to visit, first of all, he didn't go in my house, he went in the neighbor's house. No, I did. No, I don't think, yeah. And then, I don't know, he had to stay, he wasn't feeling well, and Jim and I were laying in bed, and Alan's out in the sitting room, and he's practicing the fiddle. And he's practicing, and oh, it's like 11 o'clock by now. We all have to go to work tomorrow, and Jim kind of nudges me and goes, can you just go tell your cousin that he can be done practicing now? And I said, yeah, I never did, but he did stop about 11:30-ish. He loved that fiddle, and you know, the gift that he gave that gift to Lisa, the love of playing the fiddle. And then somebody's got to tell the story about the rock that he carried for Grandma Edie. I don't know it I can't tell it as well as someone else in the family can. But we got to tell that story. Anyway, we will miss him.
My name's Guiles. I'm a friend of Alan's from demo school. We and Alan did so much together. We're kind of the only single guys in our class, and we went hunting probably every weekend for pheasant and birds. Nebraska is known for amazing pheasant hunting. So we had these spots that patients would tell us that we could hunt, and we're driving out there, and we come across this farm, and there's all these signs that said, no hunting, no trespassing, don't even think about hunting here. Beware of dog. If you're this far up here, you shouldn't be here. Alan goes, pull in here. And I'm like, there's a couple guys with us, and I'm like, Alan, you're crazy. Don't even think about asking this guy. This big old rancher comes out, and he's like, what are you doing? And Alan goes, sit in the car, you guys wait here, I'm gonna go talk to this guy. And Alan walks up there, and he's like, hey, I live here at 56 Ford over here. And the guy's like, oh, yeah? And then Alan looks at me and kind of waves and walks in the guy's house, and we don't hear from, we're sitting in the truck. We're like, are we gonna hunt today? And then Alan comes out, and he's got this big smile on his face. He goes, hey, we can have all this mile over here, all that corn over there. And so we go hunt it all, everything like that. And I'm like, we get our birds, and it was the best hunting day ever. 3 birds a day, all of us limited out right away. And Alan, well, I thought we'd be here all day hunting, and we're done. But anyway, I'm gonna miss Alan. He was like amazing, amazing friend, one of the most intelligent people you'd ever come across, and just a tenacious, smart individual. And I know a lot of people are gonna miss him. So thank you.
See if I can pull this off. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Steadman, and I grew up across the street from the Pearce family when they were very young and before they moved out to Whitney. And the only way I can describe it is magical. I mean, where else to get to live across the street from your best friend, whose dad is the ice cream man, with no locks on any of the doors. But one of the stories that sort of jumps out at me involved my dad, who was a very big man, and not always the most pleasant of men. And he was a gun collector. And even though he was a gun collector, he didn't like having handguns around, probably because he had feral children. And so he was tall enough that he could reach up and put this .22 handgun at the top of his closet, thinking that we didn't know where it was at. So one day, both my parents were gone, and Alan and I decided we were going to get out the .22 handgun and really examine it. So we got a chair, got the .22 down, and it was sort of John Wayne-ish with the leather and all the bullets. And, you know, how do you ramp up handling a handgun you're not supposed to touch? You take it into your parents' formal living room that no one's allowed in. So we promptly went into the formal living room and then decided, well, how do we make this better? Well, we decided we were going to start spinning it like they do in the movies. So I don't know who actually was spinning it at the time. And even if I did, I probably made a promise not to disclose it. But the gun went off and shot a hole through my parents' formal living room all the way up. And you can imagine the horror that two 12 or 13-year-old kids feel when they see a smoking bullet hole in the ceiling that they have just caused. And, you know, to echo the sentiment that Alan was unbelievably bright and unbelievably tenacious, and this may have actually been the start of his dental career, he looks at me and says, "That ceiling looks the color of mint crest." So we had found a stepladder and used mint crest to fill a hole and then texturize it so it matched the rest of the ceiling. For anyone who is curious, crest is a fairly decent texturizing solution for that sort of thing. And so we texturized it, put the gun away, pretended like it never happened. And then when my own father was dying, he had been sort of kind of out of it for a few weeks, not really speaking, and just, you know, he was sort of passing to the next adventure. And I decided that might be a good time to unburden myself of some of these stories that I've been holding on to. And so I started to tell my dad this story, and even though he hadn't spoken in several weeks, he raised his head and said, "Some of this blank I don't need to hear on my way out." And then laughed. It was punctuated by laughter. So I'm always going to remember Alan as being magical, filled with a little bit of mischief, and punctuated by laughter. So I love him very much, and I'm pleased that so many people love him as well.
I think I could let this time go without just expressing my love to a family. Just loved Alan, and he was a dear friend. I grew up with him, didn't realize we had almost the same birthday on February 10th. We're in Preston as well. But Alan and I were good friends. I went to school with him, and we have a sweet, sweet class. I think we have the best class of 1983, and as people found out about your dad's passing, so many sweet, kind remarks about him. I never knew the mischief. Kathy, I bet you have stories, and I know Janet Tinser said, "Oh boy, I could tell you some stories." But your dad that I knew, very kind and very thoughtful, and just good. Truly good. A couple little stories. I went to prom with him senior year, and at Preston they have the promenade, which is the theme song. And some of the guys don't like to do the promenade, and I really wanted to do that, and he of course did. because I wanted to, but he was a good dancer, so I want you to know that. He still raised up to left, he did not. And, we just had a great time. And he came to pick me up that night and handed me the most beautiful corsage. And I was like, this is the prettiest corsage I've ever gotten. And he said, I designed this myself. And I was very impressed. So he had told the florist exactly how he wanted this flower. And I had told the florist, well, I want my flower to match Alan Pearce's. Well, I didn't know that he'd gone to the other florist. So when they gave me mine, I'm like, that doesn't even match. But it was okay, we had a great time. We went, he also asked me to the Elton John concert this summer before our senior year, and we went with Cory Porter, and I can't remember who else I should, Anyway, went to the concert, just had the best time. We're coming home, we hit late and the radio stopped working. And then the lights went out of the car. And we're like, something, and then we get pulled over. And the police officer is like, you cannot go any farther. You need to pull over and figure this out because you can't drive without lights. And so we pulled over, and it was probably about 12:31 in the morning at this time. And so we somehow it wouldn't start after the police officer pulled us over. So somehow we got to the 7-Eleven that was nearby, and we all called our parents. And this nice kid said, look, you guys are going to be here for a while. I live down the street. Why don't you come to my house? You can just wait here for your parents. And so that's what we did. And we just waited and waited, and we finally got home about 6:30 in the morning, just in time for cheer practice at 7. So, but my parents were up just really nervous. The funny thing is when Alan picked me up that night to take me, Mom said, so when will you have Sherry back? And he says, oh, well, we're going to be out all night. He was just like, I don't know if you're going to go out with him again, Sherry. But he wrote in the yearbook that year, that was one of my best dates up to this point. It was just so fun. And I just really respect you. You're such a good girl. And I just have to tell you, I respect your dad. Just an amazing young man. And I know that goes for all of the family. I just want you to know our thoughts and prayers are with you. And we love you. And they will continue to be with you. And I know he's here. And the Lord is merciful. And there's things we just don't know, but it's all good. He loves us. I want to bear you my testimony that the Lord loves you. Lord's atonement is real. I love you. And I say this in Jesus Christ.
So Linda was gonna record a story that we could all hear, but she couldn't do it because she was crying, so that got to be my job. So Lou's dad, Michelle and Allison, he was born without 2 baby teeth, is that right?
Yes.
And so he had like these teeth, his front 2 teeth had like a gold something around it, and he was holding my kids one day, and one of them bumped back and knocked his teeth out. And so he had to get those teeth fixed, and Alan did it for him, and he fixed his teeth beautifully, and when they went to pay Alan, he wouldn't take any pay, not even for the stuff that he wasn't in charge of, like for the anesthesiologist and stuff. And he told Linda that he was not just my uncle, he gave me some of the best memories of my life. And Linda said that was one of the only times that Jimmy had tears in his eyes. And I know she's thinking about us and praying for us today too.
Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Cory Castagneto, and I've had immense pleasure, of being a friend of Alan Pearce's for about 20 years. Got to know Alan through his crazy and wonderful aunt, Linda. She's not here, so I can say that. As well as Allison, both of whom I was business partners with, up in from them. And just, gosh, so many things running through my head that I want to say to Alan, about Alan. The thing I miss the most, I was thinking about this last week, is just all the phone calls with Alan. Because we only lived about a mile and a half from each other, but we just spent so much time talking on the phone. And sometimes I think, well, I don't just drive over to his house, we just drive over to mine. We're like a couple of teenagers chatting for hours. And we chatted about everything. And that's what I love about Alan. It's like, Alan and I can just chat about anything. And we just go on and on talking about cars or investments, medical. I'm a big nerd, he's a nerd. We talk about nerdy science stuff. And I'm going to miss that a lot. Of course, Alan loved to hunt, and I'm a big Hawaii County junkie. That's the big county south of the Boise area, goes all the way to Nevada. And we would love to go hunt that. There's just so much ground out there, and there's nobody lives out there. And I was thinking about today, one time we went out to Juniper Mountain. It's like 2.5 hours south of Boise. And it takes a long time to get there. And we camped up on top of the mountain, the very top, and told Bigfoot stories all night. And I was fascinated. That's a whole other story for my chapter somehow. But next day, oh, by the way, if you ever go hang with Alan, bring your own food. If he says he's in charge of it, no, he's not. He showed up with peanut butter sandwiches and some trail mix for 4 days. And luckily I had swung by and got a big burrito. That's why he was so skinny. But we had gone down this mountain looking we were scouting elk before the elk archery season started. And we'd gotten off this 4-wheeler, we were just walking, and then a little cliff area right here, and I saw out of the corner of my eye a rattlesnake. It was probably still 5 or 6 feet in front of us. And I yelled, because he was closest to it, and I yelled, "Snake." And he started screaming like a little girl and jumping with his knees up here, prancing around. The snake took off, but he scared me so much from his prancing that I started screaming and jumping. He just jumped around like jumping beans for like half a minute. So I thought, this is stupid. But, it was really funny. Another time I went running antelope hunting with Alan out by Battle Creek, and he promised that I was going to get an antelope. Well, he lied. And there were antelope there, and we sat all night and day in the blind with our bows, and the things would come this way and go that way. And I said, you know what, I'm done with this. Let's go get some food or something. And then we heard some noise, and behind us, there were some antelope. They were behind us. They'd snuck behind us, but we didn't have any slots on that side. So I got my knife out and I started cutting a hole. And Alan's looking at me, and then they heard us, and that was my one shot. But I love you, Alan, and I'm gonna miss you a lot. You've been a great friend, and I know that the Lord loves you. I know that God heals all wounds, and that we'll be together soon. You want you a big hug for me? Love you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come up this time? Okay. I have just a couple things to say. This could go on all day. This man had a full life, especially when we were younger. Looks like lessons coming up here. Right. Go here, Les.
I'm not prepared because I wasn't going to do this because I wear my heart on my sleeve. But I do want to say that Alan was the best brother. You know, being the youngest and the only girl in the family, they were always great to let me tag along. And so as all these friends have been telling stories, you know, I thought I knew all the stories. And I remember being young, my mom and dad always thought that I was the wild one. And I, a lot of times, was like, oh man, I want to tell them this story about Al. Because I had a lot of dirt on Al. And I never did. I just let them think he was their little angel. And I was the wild one. But I appreciated people sending in stories. And, you know, I thought, like I said, I thought I knew them all, but I've gotten some pretty good ones. One that the family kind of wanted me to tell, but we're not sure if it's that appropriate, was from Todd Foster. And Alan was in 3rd grade. Lou actually knows the story because he was there. He's in 3rd grade, and all the kids, they lined up in class, and the teacher says, go to the bathroom and come back and get in line. So they all go out, and they're all back in line. Of course, they're waiting for Alan. But this time it wasn't because he takes a long time in the bathroom. But they're waiting for Alan because he comes, you hear this loud scream from the bathroom. Help, help. I got my wiener caught in my zipper. And God says that about 5 of them run to help him. And it was actually Mikkel Moser that took the zipper and took care of it. So that's one of them. Another story I want to tell is when Kurt was talking about hunting in Nebraska. Alan, I think, is the only person I know who has gotten his deer with a pocket knife. He had been out hunting with his bow and arrow, and he shot the deer, and the deer jumped and turned and ran into a tree and lays down right there. Alan gives it a minute and goes over, and he gets out his pocket knife to start cleaning it. Thing jumps up. And so Alan's wrestling it. He's got, you know, and that thing's got his horns just to go, and Alan got all beat up. So Alan actually stabs him with the pocket knife. And when he gets looking, he never hit it with his arrow. Another thing I wanted to mention about Mike, when Mike talked about, you know, the stories with the cars, because he could go on a lot with the cars, but he could also go on a lot about his hunting. And, you know, he told you every position, where he went, what log he sat on. This is probably too much information too, but it's a funny story. One of his first deer, Mike, when
was his first?
When he had it, when he was going to the bathroom and got it. So he's sitting down, going to the bathroom, and deer comes out and reaches over with his gun and does his first deer with his pants down. So you know, I noticed the video that my wonderful daughter put together, and I see all those young pictures of me dancing around by him and that, and he was always the brother, he was the brother that says, come on, let's go, and the night games with friends, and even though I grew up in a neighborhood of all boys, except for Kathy, me, Kathy, and Janine, and Janet. I guess I'm not the only girl, but I remember many nights, many days where he let me play football with them and baseball with them, and you name it, whatever they were doing, Alan let me tag along. And so I love him for that. And another thing is that he always, one thing I want to take and try and do better, that is something he always did, is he had no problem going and visiting with people. And I always wish growing up that I had more confidence to just, you know, I was like thinking of people, but I wouldn't go to them, their house, and talk with them because I felt like I was bothering them. And I like that about Alan, that he kept close with people, and he would just show up and say hi, and I kind of wish I had that trait, that I felt comfortable doing that, so I'm going to try better on that, reconnecting with people.
Grandpa Jack.
Grandpa Jack, yeah. Okay, anyway, thank you all for coming, and just want to say how much I loved him. And I'll miss him. But he's in a happier place. And he's not in pain. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep this really short. I just wrote down a few bullet points here that I think you guys would be. Some of this stuff you won't recognize, but these are just a few of our adventures, which were usually misadventures. And one of them was Christmas dinner for Dad Fru. I don't know if you know Dad Fru, but you think about that one. Beer baseball in Creamy Hollow. How do you play beer baseball? Al can figure it out. Bowling without dollars. Okay. The masked toy bandits. The over the hill game. Naked skunk hunting. Okay? All right. Try that one on for size. How about live skunks in the homecoming parade, Kathy? How about dolls and lizards flying through the air? I'm not quite sure about that one. Stair climbing ram sheep. Quicksand / calendar. And we're lucky we still have Al. He just about got taken out by the manure pit. Halloween battles with the Preston Fire Department and Police Department. And how many chews per bite? Okay. How about corned cougar? How many of you have eaten that? Okay. Corned cougar. All right, it's interesting, I know. How about clothing that lasts forever? Would you like to buy some clothing that was guaranteed to last forever? Al could do that. His clothing was amazing. But anyway, we did hiding Grandpa's pipe, deer tackling, elk calling, Brussels sprouts revenge. That's a weird one. What do we do with Haas? Okay, that's a story that sometime we'll tell you. Celery Quasimodo. Okay. The 12-bar blues. That was an improvised lyrics. So Al loved to play the guitar. He could play the 12-bar blues. And he and I would go late into the night making up lyrics and playing songs. And we all know, and then Al, he was the snooze and the snoring Nazi. He hated those two things. And, there's so many things I could bring up. Baptizing kittens and kids.
Yeah.
Stuff like, that's, you just have to ask me about these things. I just want to talk about 2 gifts Al gave me. 2 great gifts in my life. The gift of his friendship. He was loyal. I was just a nerdy kid, and Al was pretty darn popular. He really was, and but he was always a good, loyal friend to many of us. He never said a bad thing about people. He was wonderful for that. He was big Al. That's what I figured this week about him. He just made me feel like I was bigger than life. Like I was somebody who was, just outstanding, Just being with him was that way. When he came home from his mission, he had that missionary zeal with him. And he got me going in the church. I'd been hanging out at home, and I wasn't probably doing the best things in the world, but he called me to repentance, and he laid hands on me, and he gave me a great gift. He ordained me an elder. That was, I think, in March of 1986. And then he refused to let me stay home. He said, "Lou, you are coming to school with me. You are coming to college." And I argued, I tried everything. I was comfortable just being a redneck and staying at home. There was no problem. But Al would just not give up on me. He said, "Lou, you're going to regret it. You've got to come." And so I finally gave in. He just couldn't resist Al sometimes. And and I went with him, and it made a big difference in my life. And I'm just so thankful for him and just the profound effect he had on my life. And I love him, and I am sure, in fact, he's going to be fine. He's a good man. And so we'll come to the end of this funeral, not the end of things as far as we're all concerned. We'll have a benediction by Staci Palmer, and then we will head out for the dedication of the grave. That's out at the Preston Cemetery. And afterwards, the nice ladies with the Franklin Second Ward have us a dinner prepared for friends and family. And that is going to be in the Whitney Church House. And so we'd like to see you there. And thank you. Thank you for coming once again.
Heavenly Father, as we come to the close of this funeral for Al, we pray that we will reflect upon thy kindness, thy mercy, and thy grace, and that we will hope for a better day and know that, and not just hope, but know that we will be with our family and our loved ones again, and that we will rise triumphant. We're so grateful for this opportunity we have to meet and to remember and to celebrate life. So grateful for all that have come. And bless us that we will have thy comforting spirit to be with us. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Audience, please rise.
I'd like to ask the pallbearers to step just out here if you would, please. Thank you. They are, and you know, Bishop Robert, he's getting this truck. We're gonna get a train. Let me take that flat car. God, I didn't even think about getting them off the other side.
I got them right here off the other one. I didn't see the one on this side.
I gotta get me a nipper like you, then I'd remember to do
Well, the gals used to be good to tie a bow. Now they don't tie knots. Got them out.
I think so. I'm gonna see if I get a box with 3 or 4 bases, and then the others ought to stand okay. Well, if you wanted it, and that's why I said we get a box. If you wanted to take a couple, you could, and then.
So do you think I should run and get Leo a tray or should I get out?
I'm gonna, why don't you head out? I'll go grab a box.
Okay, it's go up the main around the monument and then turn north to south. Okay. It's in
Southwest something.
2.
Okay.